Hey everyone, welcome back to Bagel TCG. Today we're going to be doing an updated tier list and going over what the classic constructed meta looks like at the moment. We just had a calling in Kansas City, and I think it shows a lot about how the meta has evolved over the past few months. I think my last tier list was almost 2 months ago, and so there's a lot of updates to go over and a lot of meta to discuss. So first, I'm going to hop over and look at the Kansas City Day 2 conversion rates. This shows a lot about what heroes are popular, what heroes are converting well, and gives a bit more context into the meta in general. So at the top of the meta, and known as kind of the two best decks in the meta for a while, have been Gravy Bones and Arachne Slip Through the Cracks, also known as Slippy. They're the most played decks, and so you can see they're up here, even though their conversion rate isn't the highest. Gravy is considered the strongest deck in the meta, just in terms of pure power level. So if you want something that just does the strongest thing, Gravy Bones is definitely that. But they are both targetable, which is why their conversion rate isn't the highest, is because other decks that aren't these two decks are trying to target them as much as possible, right? About half your games are probably going to be into Gravy Bones or Slippy in a calling, and so you really want to be targeting these heroes. Um, the third most played hero at the event, I think, was actually Ira, but you can see she did not convert very well. I think she's slightly favored into Gravy, but otherwise, I don't think there's a great reason to play her at the moment. Yeah, she you can see she didn't convert very well, and despite her, she kind of took up the mantle of Syndra. People thinking she's the better ninja. You can see that Syndra, who I think actually had less people register her, had a much higher conversion rate. Instead of having just a slightly favored Gravy matchup, I think she's a much better Gravy matchup, and you give up the Slippy matchup, which isn't great either way. Verdance is the biggest surprise here. 41% is quite high. I think she was the fourth most played hero at the event, but 41% is quite high, especially because her Gravy matchup is considered quite bad. So she must be playing mostly non-Gravy decks. She beats a lot of the rest of the field. She can do pretty good into the Assassins and might even beat some of the Ninjas. So I think maybe this is a pairings-ish situation here, but I'm a bit surprised with the Verdance win rate. I don't think she's actually like I wouldn't put her the third best deck in the meta. Syndra has been kind of down. People haven't been playing her as much, but you can see she's still converting pretty well. And Ocilio, these three here are actually what I want to talk about the most, especially Ocilio and Fang. Fang put a they Cilio and Fang both put heroes into the top 8 of this event, and both have pretty good matchups into Gravy. Acilio and Fang are both quite favored into Gravy, and you can see they both converted pretty decently at the events. They both converted better than Gravy did, and their Slippy matchup is for Fang quite good, and for Cilio not as bad as you would expect. Acilio, I think, is a slightly stronger deck overall than Fang. It has a huge ceiling of what it can do, but Fang is probably the most consistent deck in the meta in terms of just doing a baseline powerful thing over and over. So two decks that I think are really important to discuss here. If we look at the top 8, you can see that it was an Acilio, a Dash IO, one, two, three Gravy Bones, a second Acilio, and then a Prism and a Fang. I would say this is not too big of a surprise outside of no Arachne Slip Through the Cracks making it through. I would think that there would be one or two Arachne Slip Through the Cracks, but I think maybe it's getting targeted a bit too hard. Slippy also has a bit of an issue with Gravy, who seems to just be the better deck, and that's why there's three Gravies up here. Also, a lot of really good players like Jacob Clemens and Evan Herndon, who are probably two of the best players that were at the event. You can see they even met in the finals here. We're on Gravy Bones. It seems that a lot of the quote unquote pro players really like Gravy because he has so much skill expression. Probably the hardest deck to play in the meta right now, or at least one of them, and one of the harder decks that's this good that we've seen in a while. You can see that Dash IO here beat an Acilio. These are both here because I think they have okay Gravy matchups, but still the Gravies were able to beat anything that they are weak to. You can see the Gravy beat Acilio and Dash IO in the semifinals. This just shows you how strong Gravy is. I mean, even these heroes that I think you These players probably brought because they thought they had a good chance into Gravy, and they probably beat quite a lot of Gravies in Swiss. Still lost in the semifinals. Gravy's just so strong. But this is, yeah, a somewhat expected top 8 outside of Slippy missing from it. Let's get into the tier list here. I think this one is probably not a surprise, but Gravy Bones is the top of the meta right now. Definitely S tier. Definitely the strongest deck in terms of power and what it can do. Definitely the deck I would expect to take a ban if anything is going to. I don't know if they're going to ban anything right now. I think the meta is as healthy as the meta can be. It's fairly healthy. But I mean, I suppose they could always just take away like blue golden tipple or something and restrict golden tipple only to red and yellow copies, and that would definitely hurt Gravy a little bit, but not hurt him too much. So they could do something small like that. Slippy, I actually kind of want to put him in A tier. He's not performing nearly as well as we'd expect, but I think you can't not put him in S tier at the moment. He does just some fundamentally powerful things, and he still gets played as the second most played hero. So I'll give him S tier out of respect for that. I think in terms of how he's performing though, where is he on here? Yeah, he's 25%. I mean, he did worse than Gravy, Syndra, Acilio, Prism, Fang, worse than a lot of heroes here. So out of the top out of the top 7, he was the worst converting. So he's not doing as good as you would expect, but I still think you have to respect Slippy, and maybe he just had a bad event. That's all I'm gonna put in an S tier for now. A tier though, I think is a bit more interesting than you'd expect, um, because I don't think maybe you would expect any of these 3 heroes to be the A tier right off the bat. But yeah, we've got Fang, Acilio, and Prism as the A tier. All 3 of these can beat Gravy. They all, I would say, are either 50-50 or maybe 55, 60 or higher percent win rate into Gravy, especially the less experienced Gravies in Swiss. You're not going to play a bunch of people that are as good as Evan Herndon or Jacob Clements. So if you're playing just an okay Gravy, you're quite favored. And if you're playing a really good Gravy, you still have a good chance with these heroes. So I think that's a major reason to bring them right now. They're in a good spot. I think this is all I'm going to put for A tier as well. They're basically Gravy counters. They each have varying matchups into Slippy. Fang, I would say, is the best of them into Slippy. Fang's quite favored into Slippy. The position of Fang that's makes him so good is that he's really good into both of the top decks. Like if you look on Fab Blazing data, I think he's around 70 to 80% win rate in paper events into both Gravy and Slippy, which is pretty insane. Like he wins 7 to 8 out of his 10 matches into these heroes, but he does lose into like weaker heroes. Funnily enough, like he can't beat anything that deals arcane really. So his Acilio matchup is like feels like it's 0%. His Kano matchup, his Verdance matchup, his Florian matchup, all the arcane heroes feel like they're pretty close to 0% win rate for Fang. So he's very gem roulette kind of hero. He beats the assassins, he beats Gravy, and he also beats Ira. So pretty gem roulette hero. Acilio's glass cannon, I feel like he can just beat anything if he goes off. He has like the highest damage ceiling or one of the highest damage ceilings in the meta, but he's also super fragile, so sometimes he'll just die. You can still lose to Gravy if they go like Conqueror, 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 and you have an arsenal that's not an instant or something like that. So, and Prism similarly can beat both, but is a little fragile. So these are like some more glass cannon heroes, Prism and Acilio, and then Fang's a bit more consistent but doesn't beat the rest of the field as well. I'm gonna put Ira. I'll put Syndra as well. So both the ninjas in B tier. Well, they're not the only ninjas, but the only good ninjas in B tier. Verdant, I think, belongs in B tier as well. Dash IO definitely belongs in B tier. She's probably the best aggro deck in the format, after maybe tied with Syndra, and then after Acilio, who just does some really crazy things. Um, who else belongs in B tier? It's not huge at the moment. I think maybe a Guardian after Mastery Pack Guardian. Valda and Victor seem to be the best options. I'm not sure if either actually makes it. I'll say Victor. I don't know. Valder and Victor both could be picks. I'll put Victor just to give the Guardians a little cope that we have a chance of winning it. I mean, I play almost entirely Fang now because I think Guardian's been pretty bad for a while. But in my heart, I'm still a Guardian player, so I need to give Guardian something. I'll put Volda. Not, I don't really organize them at all within tiers, but I'll put Volda at the top of C tier just for the shout out there. I think she's pretty decent. C tier, Mario, definitely not as good as Slippy, has a lot of issues, but I think he's decent. Kasai, I think is just a worse warrior than Fang, but is also decent. The meta's really constricted at the moment. Kano, maybe Kano deserves to be in B tier. Yeah, I think maybe the wizards are fine. Like Kano always just does okay. In C tier, I mean Florian's still like semi-playable, just not great. Vincent still does decent things. And Puffin actually puts in decent results, funnily enough. Like Puffin has been doing okay. We can even pull up Fab Blazing here. If you don't know Fab Blazing, they have really great data. I'm gonna look at paper results, sort by win rate. So you can see in the last 30 days, paper only tournaments, so callings, battle hardens, not counting Talishar results. So it's looking at nationals, callings, battle hardens over the last 30 days. There's 2,000 matches, sorted by win rate. Fang is the highest win rate. Basilio, Kano, Prism, Gravy, Puffin, Verdance, Florian. And you can see Slippy's number 9 here. I think this is pretty accurate to what I have. I think everyone else is just not really what I would consider playable right now. I mean, everything's playable, but I think you understand what I mean when I say playable, meaning like, you can bring it, but it's not. They don't consistently top 8 callings. I mean, I don't know if a single one of these heroes has top 8 at a calling, in the last 90 days. Maybe one of them did, but if one of them did, I don't know who it was. I don't know if any of these top 8 at a calling or similar type event in the last 90 days. But this is where I would say the tier list is right now. It's definitely shrunk a lot. If you look at tier lists I had over the last few months, I think some of them had a very different look. They had maybe 5 or 6 heroes in S tier, a pretty wide A and B tier. But I think a lot of this is due to how heroes play into specifically the S tier heroes. Gravy, you really need to have a game plan into. So many people are on Gravy and so many people are on Slippy. You need a decent game plan into at least one of them, ideally both. Gravy, you have to be able to clear allies really well while pressuring his life total. Slippy, you need to have some kind of defensive capability to answer all his disruption, some way to play around it or play into it. For example, Fang is really good at clearing allies. He has consistent daggers for 4 and for 1, so he can clear 3 and 1 health allies really well. And he has a lot of damage potential into Gravy's face. He also plays a lot of defense reactions into Slippy. He has Valiant Dynamos, so it's kind of hard for Slippy to get through when you're playing a few snags in like 12 defense reactions. So he's good game plans into both. But if you look at something, yeah, like Bravo, maybe he has a good Slippy matchup, possibly, depending on your build, but he's just never going to beat Gravy. Like, basically, in a million years, Bravo is not going to consistently, at least. Obviously, I'm not saying you can't beat him, but consistently beat Gravies. And so, yeah, I think that's what gets most of these heroes into D tier. Hopefully, we'll see a bit of a mix up when it comes to Super Slam. We're getting what, Brute and Guardian cards. And if you look at where Brute and Guardian is, currently every Brute is in D tier, and then basically every Guardian. I mean, I gave Victor is actually doing okay. I mean, and I gave Valda like a shout out, but Guardian in general is doing quite bad. So we'll see if that changes anything. Both Guardian and Brute don't do amazing into Gravy, so we'll see if there's anything coming out of Super Slam that actually helps them into Gravy. If there isn't, I don't think any of the heroes from Super Slam will be viable unless Gravy takes some massive nerfs. I just don't think you can realistically play a hero right now that loses to Gravy consistently. But this is where I would put the meta. Very different, maybe a very controversial take on the meta. Putting, Fang, Acilio, and Prism as the A tier might be really criminal to some people, but they're what beats Gravy, and they also all have some kind of play into Slippy. So This is where I would put the meta at the moment. Let me know what you think. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.